Weatherfield is facing a terrifying threat, and this time, the danger isn't a stalker in a dark alley, but right at the breakfast table. Lisa Swain, a lifelong crime hunter, never imagined her real nightmare would come from the person she trusted most. But the clues are gradually piecing together, and the unfolding picture sends chills down the audience's spine. Before delving into the dramatic investigation tearing apart the Swain family, don't forget to check out Coronation Stuck, the channel that keeps you updated on the most shocking events in Weatherfield. This storyline completely changes the atmosphere of the series. We're used to seeing Lisa as a steel pillar, decisive, sharp, capable of seeing through lies others overlook. But what happens when those very lies come from someone living in the same house? That's the nightmare Lisa is facing. It all began as a sudden tragedy, Costello's unexpected death. On paper, it was an accident. The entire Weatherfield community wanted to quickly bury the grief and move on with their lives. But Lisa didn't. A seasoned investigator's intuition always warned her something was wrong. And when Lisa had a bad feeling, she was usually right. But this time, it meant her world was about to collapse. Tensions only truly escalated when Becky returned. On the surface, Becky was still Becky. Her Instagram account was overflowing with smiles and cheerfulness, like someone recovering from a traumatic event. But Lisa saw things others didn't. The averted gaze when Costello was mentioned, the unnecessary defensiveness, the eggshell-like tension in her own home. And the audience felt that suffocating tension too, but intuition is one thing. New evidence is what turns this story into a true psychological nightmare. Everything changes completely when Lisa finds the junk phone. A device with its data wiped clean is always a bad sign. But technology doesn't forget easily. Lisa recovered the messages and a recording, in which Costello's voice is filled with despair. "Becky, don't do this. We can work this out." It wasn't just fear, it was a plea. What had happened between them to the point of meeting secretly and begging one last time? In that moment, Lisa understood she wasn't investigating a suspicious death anymore, but a murder, and the main suspect was the man sleeping beside her every night. Tracking the location data, Lisa discovered an even more horrifying truth. Becky said Costello was on his way to the airport, but the GPS revealed a completely different story. They were both at Laboca del Diablo, the Devil's Mouth, a treacherous cliff with deadly currents. It wasn't a place for pre-flight conversations. It was a place people went to avoid being seen. And this completely shattered Becky's testimony. From here, Becky's mask began to crumble. Her erratic behavior, her calculated sobs, her panic whenever the autopsy results were mentioned, all of it shattered Lisa's heart. She had loved Becky, believed in her innocence. But the evidence piled up like a storm. The torn plane ticket was the next blow. Becky had booked her flight to Lanzarote earlier than she admitted, meaning it had all been planned. Not a coincidence. It was a plan. The atmosphere in the house grew increasingly tense. Becky kept asking about the progress of the investigation, not out of curiosity, but because she wanted to know how close Lisa was to the truth. And Lisa knew it. She locked the windows, wary whenever she went outside. A female police officer had to fear even in her own neighborhood, simply because the person threatening her was her closest confidant. But all of that paled in comparison to the final piece of evidence, the photograph in the travel bag. A sealed envelope, simply marked, L. Inside was a photograph taken months earlier in Lanzarote, a raw moment of violence. Costello, covered in bruises, stood beside an overturned table. Becky stood opposite him, her face contorted with rage, her fists clenched. The timestamp on the photograph matched when Becky said she was writing in her diary on the beach. There was no explanation. This was proof that Becky had been violent towards Costello. Evidence showed their relationship had been in danger for a long time. Lisa was devastated. There was no room for denial. The person in the photo wasn't the Becky she loved. It was a far more dangerous version, Now Lisa was trapped. Her professional responsibilities compelled her to seek justice for Costello. Her conscience forced her not to turn her back on the truth. But her heart remained tied to her relationship with Becky. Bringing Becky to light meant ruining her own life. Just thinking about it made Lisa feel suffocated. We are heading towards a confrontation that will go on